Hi everybody, this is Steve Hargadon and it's Wednesday, June 17th, 2009, and welcome to the Future of Education. This is an earlier slot than we normally have, so thank you for coming. Looks like we have a nice audience this morning. Sure appreciate your being here. Some of you are shouting out in the chat where you're from. That's a lot of fun to do. Our thanks this morning to KnowledgeWorks Foundation for supporting the Future of Education interview series, and to Illuminate for providing this environment. KnowledgeWorks has produced a 2020 forecast, creating the future of learning, and I did a fascinating recording that I've posted on my blog, a 2-hour drill down, kind of like a DVD commentary on that forecast. And I'll put the link to my blog in the chat in a minute. It's very worth looking at, and a lot of fun. Also want to remind you, if you are going to NECC this year, please consider coming to EduBloggerCon, our free unconference, the Saturday before NECC. Also, there's a 3-day unconference within a conference, necfunplugged.com, and we encourage you to look for that. Come attend physically if you're at NECC, or attend virtually if you're not. So Sandy says that Rachel's ready to go. Let me do desktop share again. So Rachel, I'm going to give you I'm going to give you moderator privilege. And so we're going to do a little technical support while we're started. Rachel, we've gone ahead and started, but we haven't done anything critical. At the top of your screen, you'll see a set of icons, one of which is a screen with a hand underneath it. A computer monitor with a hand underneath it. It's right to the right of the screen. So go ahead and click that.
Okay.
And once you do, it will give you a choice of which of your programs you want to share, and you should be able to highlight your web browser and then click OK.
Okay, I did that.
Great. So we are seeing your screen.
Great. So I'm going to switch over. Do you see my Frontline screen now?
Digital Nation right now. Yeah.
Beautiful. Terrific.
So let me suggest that we hear you great.
Great.
So everybody, let's give a warm welcome to Rachel. There's a clapping hand at the bottom of the participant window. You can use that to let her know you're glad that she's here this morning, taking time with us.
Hi, everybody.
Rachel, let's go ahead and close that down just for a second.
Close what down?
The application share. I've just closed that, or I will in a second. Oh, maybe you need to. Let's see. There we go. So it's gone. Excuse me. It's gone away, but we'll bring it right back when we need to. And I'm going to do a very quick orientation for people as to how to use the Illuminate environment. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. So if this is your first time in Illuminate, I want to make sure that you have a sense of how it works. If Rachel actually wants to ask a question of the audience, we can respond. And you'll see up at the top there's a green check and a red X, and those allow you to respond yes or no. But you can respond in even more ways. One way is to leave a message in the chat, and at the bottom of the chat box you'll see a little area where you can actually type in a message. You can also send messages to specific individuals in the session, but do know that none of those are private. The moderators actually see all of those messages. If you want to express approval or appreciation, you can use that clapping hand emoticon. To the left of it is a little smiley face. There's a confused face and a thumbs down, which we don't see very often. I don't expect to see it today, but know that those are there for you to respond. Oh, Andrew, you're teasing us. To the left of those, there's a hand icon with a green arrow up. And that lets you raise your hand. And if you think that you'd like to ask Rachel a question, and I know she wants high participation today, you can click on that button and you raise your hand, and I'll give you the microphone capability. If you do think you want to ask a question through the microphone, go up to Tools, Audio, and run the Audio Setup Wizard, and that'll make sure that your microphone is working. You're also welcome to ask questions in the chat. Okay, so I'm going to give you all privileges to modify this map. And to the left of the map, you'll see a little wand with a red star at the end. And if you click on that and click on the map, you can let us know where you're listening from.
Wow.
So definitely North American centric today, but I think not unexpected given that this is a frontline program. Although I'm sure, Rachel, that you get broader audience than that, but maybe it's
we do, but usually it's later. Usually it starts as a more local phenomenon, and then when the programs are sold abroad, we get more of an international audience.
So some of you have put where you're from in the chat. Please feel free to do that. It's always fun for us to see where people are coming in from. Okay, so
I see someone's in Canada.
So, Rachel, we're certainly glad to have you here, and glad that we've got you actually logged in and ready to go. Everybody,
I'm glad to be here.
Rachel, why don't we start by having you give a sort of a short introduction to yourself. I know you primarily through growing up online, which for many of us was a significant television event, and has been shared by many of us with a lot of our friends and family. Would you tell us a little bit more about your background and then what's brought you to the Digital Nation Project?
Sure. Well, I'm a producer-director, and I've produced pretty much exclusively for Frontline for many years now. I began at Frontline in 1990 as an associate producer and began producing my own programs I think around 1995 or 1996. So I've made many documentaries. I would say the topics range from looking at the effect of the marketing machine on kids in a program called Merchants of Cool, to a program about the child protective system called Failure to Protect, which was broadcast several years ago, to a program called The Lost Children of Rockdale County, which looked at a group of children near the Atlanta area who were engaged in some really high-risk behaviors. So I would say the common theme across a lot of my work is that I'm interested in youth and in kids, although not exclusively. And particularly since I've had my own kids, which I did starting about 11 years ago. I now have 3 of them. I've been really drawn to that territory. Digital Nation came as a result of growing up online. After we broadcast that program, we were made aware of what significant impact it had and how hungry people are for coverage of this very, very important issue. And we really felt like we had just begun to sort of chip away at a giant iceberg, and that there was so much more to say on this subject, and not just about kids, but really about all of us, because we're all in the middle of this big social revolution. And the executive producer of Frontline was the one who initially had the idea that we do this project in a completely different way than we've done our documentaries in the past. Where normally when we make a documentary, we do everything privately until we essentially broadcast the documentary, and then it's kind of open to the public. And what he thought would be interesting would be to open up the process from the beginning through the web and to create a website that would precede the film by almost a year, and that would invite people to collaborate and contribute from the beginning, so that when the film does air, it's really a product of all of this input. So that's what we're doing, and we launched the website about 3 months ago, and we're just getting into education as a kind of theme, and I'm happy to go on, but why don't you ask me some more questions, Steve? I don't want to take up too much of your time with this.
Oh, no, you're doing it exactly right, and I love it. But I will prompt you with a couple of questions. So
sure.
It seems to me that you're trying to live the technology by putting it out there early. I will tell you that I had a hard time stopping watching. The site really consumed me. Are you getting the response that you were hoping in terms of participation?
No. In answer to your question, no. And I think part of that, I think there are a couple of reasons for that. One is that, we're new and the word is just getting out, and it's going to take a little time for people to hear about the project and know where to find it. I also, we're going to be doing a big redesign of the website, which is going to go up, I think, in the next month or two. And in part that's because we want the website to give more opportunities for people to contribute than it does now. we're slowly beginning to add features that allow people to contribute, but we're learning as we go. We've never built a website before ourselves since we're filmmakers, and so we're learning how important it is to sort of make it visible to people on the home page where and how they can contribute. So that the new and improved website will be even more welcoming of the public. But the one that exists now, there is a wonderful feature on the site called Stories from Your Digital Nation, which has been really successful. And that is an opportunity for people to submit short videos and audios of their experience with the digital world. And they can talk about whatever it is they want to talk about. And if you go to that site, you'll see there are, I don't know, upwards of 40 really interesting contributions so far, and we're hoping that will explode in the next few months.
So let's go ahead and have you share your desktop, and we'll look at that particular piece.
Why don't I start with your stories then? So this is called Your Digital Nation, and
so Rachel, we'll need to have you click on that same icon up at the top again to actually share the desktop.
Just a moment.
That's okay. We close that down.
So this is the hand that I'm clicking on?
It's the hand underneath the screen.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay, now let's see. So here, do you guys see it now? This is Stories from Your Digital Nation.
I can. If you can see it, please go ahead and clap and let her know. You should be able to see it in a minute or two. It may take a second to pull up. There you go.
Looks like people are seeing it.
So Rachel, just make sure that there we go, perfect.
Can everybody
see it now? Those of you who are watching, if you're watching, you can expand that window by dragging the side over if it needs to be larger for you. So how have teachers in particular responded or not responded? Did you feel like the education community has noticed this yet?
I think they're beginning to, yes. I mean, I would say that the education community has been a really enthusiastic participant in the site so far, and particularly now because we've just launched, we just posted yesterday, I believe, or the day before, a series of pieces about education. And so, we're trying to get the word out. We're going to be at NECC in a couple of weeks, and we're going to have a booth there. So we'll be reaching out to the community there, and I will tell you a little bit more about that booth later in the conversation. I really want to urge anybody who's going to be there to come to the booth, because we're going to actually be collecting stories for Your Digital Nation at NECC. But if you look on this page alone, the top 3 circles on the left side are all middle school students at in middle school in the Bronx, where we've spent quite a bit of time. This is IS 339, which is a laptop school, and only recently a laptop school, and has had some really dramatic results from the use of technology. And 3 of the students here have contributed their own stories of their life in the digital age, which I really urge you to watch. And there are other places on the site where you'll see some of these students and some more about this really unique and extraordinary school. And there are also another couple of contributions from teachers. There's one in particular from a gentleman who's a teacher in a paperless classroom. I don't know if you guys can see, I'm there now. So I would say that teachers and students are really central to this site. It's an issue I personally care a lot about, and I think we've done some really good work, and it's just a beginning. We're going to be continuing to explore this issue with your help. But we really do urge you to share your stories, and I want to emphasize that we're not just looking for the stories of teachers who have embraced technology. We're also really interested in hearing from teachers who aren't as comfortable with technology, about why they're not as comfortable with technology, and about what some of the downsides they might see to the use of technology in the classroom are.
What kind of feedback did you get from teachers about growing up online?
I think a lot of teachers were really grateful to Frontline for airing the program, and many teachers identified with either one or the other of the 2 teachers we profiled in the piece. I'm going to go to the features page of the website, where you'll see that there's an excerpt from Growing Up Online right here on the features page called Two Teachers. And we shot this in Chatham High School in Chatham, New Jersey. And this was just happened to be the high school where we were. We didn't choose it for this reason, but there were two teachers who we found, one who really had embraced technology, who believed that this was the future, that kids needed to learn the skills of multitasking, that it was important to meet them at their level where they live, and who was very successful at doing so. And then there's another teacher who'd been in the school for many, many years, Rose Purpura, who was really concerned about what she described as a kind of lack of focus among her students, a difficulty in sort of sitting with one task and really going deep, and a concern that her students, in part because they had been exposed to so much technology, were sort of skirting over the surface of things and not necessarily able to kind of really get the depth that she wanted them to get out of their studies. And I spoke to many teachers, some who really felt what Rose Purpura felt, that they were noticing changes in their students and that they were concerned about it and that it was important to combat that. And others who really felt that this is a new world and a new set of skills that students are going to need, and that we need to kind of find ways to teach students in this environment, and that the possibilities of this environment are extraordinarily rich. I think it's possible to agree with both of them, because I think they're both right to a certain extent.
I love it that you've included material from Growing Up Online. I personally got sucked into the interview section, and I'm trying to remember where it was. Is that under
It's
extras?
under extras. And if you go to extras here, and this will also change. We're going to make this a little easier to find, but inside extras, for some reason it's taking a little while but there we go. You'll see interviews right here. And we're going to continue to add to this, but we've already got some really, really interesting material here. We put up some interviews that we shot for Growing Up Online, as well as interviews we've done for this project. And a lot of these interviews actually deal with the issue of learning and education. As you'll see at the very top, we've featured two polar opposite perspectives. Mark Bauerlein, who wrote The Dumbest Generation, is a pretty controversial figure, but very thoughtful guy who really is concerned about not just because of technology, certainly, but certainly he is concerned about some of the issues around kids not being able to kind of go deep. Mark Prensky, I would describe as really taking an alternative perspective and believing in the use of video games in the classroom, in the kind of death of a certain kind of reading, and that's okay. That we're reading, but we're reading differently. That most books, as he says, should be shorter, and that the advantage of the web is that it allows us to kind of get the kind of impact of something without having to read every word and spend hours and hours and hours probing a text. So I think it's really interesting to watch excerpts from both of these interviews. And then if you go down a little bit further, you'll see interviews with Steve Mayer, who is the teacher I described at Chatham, who is a big proponent of technology. And then below him, excerpts from our interview with Rose Purpura, the English teacher, who's more concerned about that. So what you'll see if you look at the clip I just showed you from Growing Up Online is excerpts from their interviews, very short ones that are cut into a finished piece. But if you want to see much more extensive excerpts, you can look here. So those are the four I would sort of highlight at this point. We've got two more coming up very soon. We interviewed James G., who is, many of you may know Professor G. He is a big believer and proponent of video games in the classroom and gaming in education. And then we also interviewed Henry Jenkins, who was at MIT and is moving to USC. So those are going to be going up in the next week or two, I believe.
So are there other parts of the site you'd like to show us? Do you want to give us sort of a brief overview tour?
Sure, yeah. Why don't I give you guys a little bit of an overview. I'll start on the home page where, if my computer ever gets there, you'll see some of the biggest features on the site right here on the home page. We've got a featured video pretty much every month. We're putting up a new featured video. The first two videos, this is an education video about a school in the Bronx, which I'll describe in a moment. But before I do that, I'll just mention to you what some of the earlier videos we've had were. And you can access all of these by going to features. we did an extensive shoot in South Korea, which is the most wired nation on the planet at this moment, or at least it claims to be. There are a few countries that claim to be, but South Korea is pretty wired. And we actually did visit a couple of schools in South Korea, and I urge you to look at this. We have 5 video pieces up here. One of them, which we're calling Netiquette, was shot in a elementary school in Seoul, where the kids are learning internet etiquette starting in 1st grade. And when I say internet etiquette, I don't just mean how to stay away from predators online. They're really learning about what it means to be on email and how not to hurt your friends and how to talk to your friends. And this is a really cute feature. They're singing a song called Netiquette, which I'll play for a moment because it's really just adorable and really startling because it isn't something that most American classrooms are teaching. I know my children's elementary school has not even begun to talk about these issues. Can you guys hear this?
So we can see it, but we can't hear it. But when we start the web tour and look at that Google video, we can come back to this one as well if you'd like.
Okay, so I'll pause it. Okay, so I'll go back to features. So we in South Korea we spent some time with in the professional gaming industry, which has become really big. I mean, people make 6 figures as professional video gamers in Korea. And we also looked at what's called the public health crisis of internet addiction. The government of South Korea has declared that they've got a real public health crisis, and that a significant portion of their youth are addicted to the internet. So we profile a kid who's been struggling with this, and we follow him to what's called an internet rescue camp. This is the feature here. Where they take kids into a kind of wood-like, camp-like setting and just kind of try to acclimate them back to the sort of physical world, because some of these kids have really gotten lost in gaming and are having trouble connecting to other people. And so they try to teach kids, you know, what it means to sort of have a real-life friendship, and they give them some exposure to nature. So anyway, there's a lot of fun stuff to look at here. I won't take you guys through everything, but I'm particularly fond of our Korea section. We've also done a lot of work with the military, and I'll go back to features and just show you what we've done there. We've got a bunch of different looks at the way the military is using technology. They tend to be ahead of the rest of us on this front. We're looking in our big circle here. This is a look at the way we are using virtual worlds to actually treat PTSD in soldiers who are coming back from Iraq, quite successfully, I might add. And then we also look at the way the military is using virtual worlds and digital media in training their troops. So there's just a whole lot of stuff. And then underneath, on all of each one of our feature pages, underneath we've got these really well-researched tabs, which give you an infinite amount of background on virtually anything you want to see here. So, you know, we look at drones, and Jeff Irvine in my office has done a really great job at kind of explaining the context to most of these videos that we're doing and providing really valuable links. So, and then you'll see there's a link to an interview we did with P.W. Singer, which is relevant. So there's just a lot to look at on the features page. And then on our education features page, you'll see that we've got our big video is about this middle school in the Bronx that I'm mentioning, which I don't know if you guys have already watched this piece. Have they watched this piece already?
No, we didn't.
Steve?
I think is this the Google school piece?
This is how Google saved a school, which I was under the impression that you guys were going to take a look at this. I think it's about a 5 or 6 minute piece, and it's a really interesting look at way one school has used technology to really save itself. So that's there. And then there's also this excerpt from Growing Up Online, as well as a piece on social networking in the classroom that was also shot in the Bronx. We'll be adding to this. Steve, do you want me to continue the web tour, or do you want to stop here at the education piece?
No, I think you're doing a great job. I'm really loving the overview. I will tell you, I'm the guy who watches all the special features on a DVD if it's a movie I really like. So here I am coming to this site, and it wants to suck me in. I want to spend hours on it.
Well, that's great. All right, well then before we finish, let me just mention 2 other things. There is a blog which we're pretty much updating almost every day. So I encourage you to search the blog, and there is topics. It's been sorted by topics, so you can look at all of the blog posts on education. My blog in the last couple of days was about my own middle school search for my 5th grade son, which I was doing just at the same time I was profiling the middle school in the Bronx. And so it was a really interesting sort of public-private parallel, which I'm finding a lot these days. And I was deciding between a laptop school and a school with no technology at all. So I wrote about that. And then if you look at education, we have some other blogs on this topic as well, and that will continue to grow. We're going to have some guest bloggers coming in to write about issues that are interesting to our viewers. And you can see there's quite a bit here about education that we've looked at. And then I showed you guys your stories, and then the only other thing I would want to mention, a couple other things before we finish this web tour. In extras, I urge you guys to check out this interactive body map of a digital native. What we did was we took a 24-year-old girl, and we just created this interactive map where you can actually look at the way that digital media is impacting her body from her brain, and the way that she is or isn't multitasking. So I'll click on her brain, and you can see searching online activates more brain regions and reading printed words. It takes about 15 minutes to return with full attention to a serious mental task if you responded to an email or instant message, and some more data on whether technology is rewiring our brains. And then if you click on her hand, you can look at texting and its impact on people's hands and how quickly kids are texting. If you click on her mouth, you can see the difference between texting and talking, and some issues around text messaging and scores on vocabulary and reading. We've got eyesight, ears, you get the picture. And then the last feature I just want to highlight is the About feature, which just tells you a little bit about us and our project. And it will also allow you to watch a trailer which profiles the project and kind of introduces you to me and to the other correspondent on the project, Douglas Rushkoff. So that's kind of an overview of what's on the website.
So I know you were hoping that today would be highly participative and interactive.
Yes.
We did get a comment while you were talking from Andrew Brown, who said, "I don't think the site is designed to attract a younger audience." Have you thought about ways in which, both from the standpoint of audience age and just the willingness to contribute, what things you could do to change the website to make it more inviting in that way?
Yes, that's a great question, Andrew. Thank you. And that's exactly what this redesign is about. Frontline audience tends to be older, but we're hoping that through this website we will be able to expand that and attract younger people. And so one of the things we're doing is we're creating a homepage that allows people to comment right there and to see each other's comments. We are going to create a Facebook page for the project, which we're hoping will also help us, as well as creating more interactive opportunities on the site itself. So live forums, we're talking about some partnerships with groups that are connected to young people, and that we'll be able to do sort of some cross-promotional stuff on. So we're working pretty hard on this particular issue, and we are very eager, and I would welcome your thoughts and ideas about how we could expand on that.
So it's funny, Amy's asking, what about Twitter? And Shelley says, what is the Digital Nation Twitter feed? And I had the same question, and I went looking for the Digital Nation Twitter feed and found the blog, a very interesting blog post on Twitter, but I couldn't find a Twitter feed. Is there one?
Right. No, there is a Twitter feed on the blog. As you can see here, I will go to it. It's a pretty... Here it is. Here's the Twitter feed on the blog. But we are talking about creating a Digital Nation Twitter feed, and I think that is going to happen. We're working on it. And in advance of the NECC, we're talking about actually launching it at the NECC. So that's very much in the works. This was kind of the way we're describing the website as it is now is that it's sort of a beta for us. It was kind of our first couple of months we were figuring out how websites work and what's important, and so I think you'll see a very different looking site in the next couple of months, and one that's a little bit more inviting of the public.
Does anybody else feel like it would be a little intimidating to contribute self-created content on a site with such professional content? How, as an audience, how do you respond to that?
That's a great question.
And you'll have to probably move your desktop share to the side if you're not seeing stuff in the chat. But J.R. Boyd says, I don't think kids would. Go ahead, Rachel.
I'm sorry, I'm just looking. Kids would be intimidated. Whoa, okay, hold on.
I closed down the web tour.
Good, okay.
I'm in the desktop share.
I think, well, we actually do have, we do have student-produced content on the stories page right now. And I think Bob is right. Kids are not intimidated. It's quite the opposite. I think adults are more likely to be intimidated. But kids are used to creating content and putting it on the web, and I don't think they're at all daunted. I think they're excited and a little nervous. But it's something that kids tend to embrace. It's really just about asking the right questions and giving them an opportunity and giving them the digital tools they need. What we did in the Bronx is we had some flip cams, which we passed around among the kids, and we helped them just kind of interview each other, which actually turned out to be a really interesting way because the kids who were interviewing were just as engaged as the kids who were answering. And they would interview each other about their digital life and about their presence online, how they're different, how their personality is different online. And we got some really interesting results. So I think if it's a teacher-facilitated activity, which is what I'm actually hoping some of you teachers out there would consider doing, I think you'll find the kids to be really excited about it.
And it seems in the chat there's pretty general agreement with you that the kids aren't going to be as intimidated potentially as the adults would be.
I think so. I see some of the teachers saying this. My students are fearless in front of a video camera. And I'm with you. I think kids tend to be pretty comfortable with this stuff, and it's natural for them. I mean, they're doing this all the time anyway. As for releases and permissions, we are working on that. I think we are going to develop some sort of because some of the material that's on the website actually may end up in the documentary, we will need releases for material that's going into the documentary. So we are in the process of talking to our legal department at WGBH, where Frontline's based, about what's going to be involved. And I think we will post that on the website, so it'll be easy for teachers to see how to get permission for this kind of material to be published.
So we're getting a lot of chat. If you're having trouble following the chat, you might want to go up to Tools. Go up to View Layouts and click the wide layout, and it lets you see the chat a little bit better. One question that has since popped off the screen, Rachel, was you made the comment that you felt both teachers were right with their concerns with the benefits and losses of technology use in the classroom. What do you personally consider to be an acceptable balance of technology in the classroom for teachers and students?
I think that's a great question, and it's something I'm wrestling with as a parent as well as a journalist. I think the key here is balance. That's certainly the role that I play with my own kids, is the policeman of their balance in their lives and making sure that for all the time that they do spend online, that they're spending a lot of time not online, and a lot of time getting pleasure out of things that can't be done online. The other thing that I think is really important is to teach kids a love of reading before they discover the love of the web, because I think it's hard for the two to compete. The web asks less of you sometimes, particularly when you're just playing games. And I think it's important for kids to learn to love books and to do one thing at a time before they develop all these skills on the web. So I guess for a teacher, I think it's just important that they have their time with a book as well as their time online, and that's balance,
So I know that you were hoping that there would be some participation by teachers today in this session. Are there specific questions that you would like to ask those who are here?
Yeah, I think I'm interested in knowing from teachers who've been teaching for some time whether they are seeing changes in their students, as digital technology gets more and more portable and more ingrained in their life, both positive and negative. So that would be a question I'd have for some of the teachers to start with. I have some other questions. I'm interested in knowing from teachers whether they find this technology intimidating, whether it's changed them as teachers, as well as noticing how it's changed their students. And also some of the most exciting, my last question would just be, what are some of the most exciting technology-related moments they've had, where they've seen technology do something for kids as learners that they never could have seen without the technology?
So if you think you'd like to answer one or all of those questions, feel free to put it in the chat, or if you're brave, raise your hand and we'll give you the microphone. And again, we're getting a lot of chat, and I'm not sure I'm following all the questions. But there's one here from Caroline who says, I'm seeing a focus on digital life of our youth in today's educational world. Have you thought about looking outside the educational world as to how this digital world is impacting our students in their faith lives?
Can you repeat that one more time? I'm sorry, I'm multitasking. I'm trying to read comments. So if you wouldn't mind
we're all
multitasking.
So Caroline in Ford asks a question, and I'm going to modify it slightly. But she says, I'm seeing a focus on digital life of our youth in today's educational world. Have you thought about looking outside the educational world as to how this digital world is impacting our students? She says, in their faith lives. I would ask, in other ways that impact education as well. Are there things happening outside of schools?
I think,
go ahead.
Yes. Well, I think absolutely we're looking at it. I mean, growing up online certainly looked at that. So if you haven't watched that already, I urge you to watch it, because we did look at the impact of all this technology on the sort of social and emotional and intellectual development of kids. And we're continuing that exploration. So we are looking at, the impact on brain development. We're looking at the social issues that come up. We're looking at what kids do in their free time and how they're using mobile technology. So I think you'll see an enormous amount of this on the site as time goes by. We're going to be, updating this site regularly through the end of the year, if not longer, with new content.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and give the microphone to Maureen. Maureen, in order to speak, you'll need to click on the microphone button in the audio area. Go ahead and click, and that will turn your mic on, and you can ask your question. We can hear you. We did hear you. You have to click and leave it on.
Doesn't want to do it. Control F2.
Oh, it's clicking off. Try again.
Huh.
Maureen, if it's not staying on, go ahead and put your question, if you would, in the chat. And I've lost track of the chat. It's going to fast time. Oh, okay, Maureen, we can hear you now. Go ahead and try.
It's got a life of its own.
My name is Maureen Greenbaum. I'm in New Jersey. I'm a professor at a community college, and I guess I'm a 61-year-old millennial since I started using computers in 1968. But I am kind of unique in my college. Everybody else, all the other profs, are really scared. But what I am seeing is the students think they know about the Internet. I teach the Internet. But they know a lot about downloading music. They know a lot about Facebook. They know almost nothing about validating what they read on the site is correct. I have a lot of other things to think, but I don't want to make my list too long, so I'll sign out.
That's Maureen, this is something I've heard a lot about, and I think this is a gigantic problem, which is that we tend to think of these kids as experts and natives, and they know so much more than we do, but the vast majority don't get into the net beyond some of the things you've already mentioned, and particularly when it comes to the authenticity of content and really having a sort of critical attitude about what they're reading online. Most of them have not been educated, and I think this is up to the schools. I mean, we really are going to need to teach them, starting from a very early age, how to use the net productively. And they're not going to teach us this. I mean, we really are going to need to bring some of our adult perspective and maturity to their education online.
I think a lot of those who were here are of a self-selected audience of people who were brave enough to come into Illuminate or were participating in the web to some degree. But I think a lot of the educators who are here would probably say that this technology has in some sort of fundamental way transformed their learning experience. As an audience, do you agree with that statement? And can you say to Rachel that your experiences with the new network world have been significant for you personally? Anybody want to share that by microphone? Okay, Rob, I've given you the mic. You'll click on that mic button to turn your mic on. And Rob, we're not hearing you if you're talking, so maybe you need to run the audio setup wizard, and we'll come back to you in just a second. I'm going to give the mic to web literacy class. And to turn your mic on, you do click on that mic button in the audio box.
Can you hear us?
Yep.
Okay. We're actually a classroom full of teachers here. We've got 22 teachers, and we're doing a web literacy class this week we're basing it on Alan November's book, the web literacy book that he did, and we've just been covering all of the different subjects that you guys are talking about learning how to validate websites. So
that's great. Wow, that's wonderful.
Yes, our teachers wanted to say thank you for showing us your site, and we appreciate it, and they're looking forward to getting on there and collaborating with you.
Great. I was going to say, we'd love to hear from you guys, particularly because web literacy is such a hot topic right now, and there's so many schools that want to teach it and don't know how. So share your experience. We can talk to you guys about ways that you could contribute to the site. But I think there are many ways in which what you're doing could be passed on to others.
So Rob, I'm going to give you the microphone by turning on the teleconference bridge audio. Can you hear us? I'm sorry, Gregory.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh.
Hi, Gregory.
Hi, Rachel. Hi, Steve. Excellent. I'm really enjoying this. I think the first thing that I've learned is that Twitter, Bigo, which is a social networking bookmarking site, Steve's Future of Education thing, all of those have really contributed to my personal understanding of how social networking is transforming my own learning. And it's out of that transformation of myself that I come to teach my students. So anyway, those are my thoughts.
Interesting.
Thank you.
What can I just ask you? Can I just ask you how social networking is transforming your learning and your teaching?
Well, as an isolated teacher in my own classroom, I teach biotechnology in middle school. I'm kind of isolated from all other teachers. I don't have a local professional network. And so by connecting to others around the world who are teaching interesting concepts that I'm also interested in teaching, for example, atomic molecular theory and the use of videos and animations, I network with professionals throughout the K-20 spectrum, university professors, AP biology teachers, other middle school teachers. All of that's available to me through Twitter and through Nings and through other social networks that I have. And that's really empowered my ability to deliver very interesting, interactive simulations to my students. For example, through that network, I found out about Chris Beatty's work at Harvard, the River City Project, and the use of three-dimensional virtual worlds to teach the scientific process to investigate disease.
That's great. I want to just add that one of the things we saw in IS 339 is that they used Google and Google Docs to really make the school more transparent so that teachers could see what other teachers were doing and communicate with teachers more easily. And that has really helped with the isolation of teachers and helped them to sort of learn from each other. So the technology is not just in the classroom, it's in between teachers in a school as well.
So I think one thing that's interesting...
It's been fantastic.
I spoke over you, Gregory. Didn't mean to.
Oh, that's okay. I'm basically finished. I'll let other people respond. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, Rachel, I think one thing that's interesting for me is that we've definitely seen social networking become a pretty powerful tool for professional development. The interesting story kind of coming up will be classroom use of social networking, or the technologies that we call social networking. I think another really interesting aspect to this is the kind of meeting we're having right now, which in many ways is sort of a synchronous version of social networking, where people can gather together with fewer barriers to talk about things that are of interest to them. So I would echo Gregory's comments that I think this has been a very interesting experiment that people are finding has been really helpful. So I'm going to give the mic now to Angela. Sorry, go ahead, Rachel.
No, that's fine. Great.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Angela. Yep.
Hi, great. Thank you so much for this wonderful event. I just wanted to say that the transformation has occurred at our university because we're a 100% online university. Military students, we have 69% of our students are active military, and they range in age and, of course, location around the world. And so even though a lot of the native learners for technology and computers are with our younger students and younger children, what we have seen is that because of events and locations, a lot of our traditionally adult, or non-traditional, I should say, adult learners are really taking on and immersing themselves with the technology. So thank you very much.
Thank you. What's the name of your university?
American Public University and American Military University. We're together.
And where are they located?
Well, because we are 100% online, we're located around the world, but
you're 100% all over the place.
Yeah, we're 100% all over the place. We're out. Our administrative offices are in Charlestown, West Virginia, but not to give a plug or anything, but I just wanted to say what I've always found is what you're saying is that the students, the younger students, are more at ease with technology, and seeing the fact that because someone might be stationed in Afghanistan or in Basra, Iraq, that because of circumstances, they are immersing themselves in technology and using that for instruction. And we, on the more traditional brick and mortar side, and we who are older adults in the instructional side have to sometimes catch up with them, even though they're, people tend to think that that's the elementary students or the middle school students or the high school students, but no, it's these adult learners around the world. Thank you.
Right.
So I'm going to try and give the mic to you again, Rob. Do you want to try again? And we can see that your mic is turned on, but nothing's coming through, so I'm really sorry about that. It sounds like I'm not getting sound from you. Michael Leventhal, did you want to say something?
Yes, can you hear me though? I don't know.
Yep.
I hear you.
So Michael, we heard you have to turn your mic back on again. There you go.
Somewhere in the conversation, although it may not be appropriate at this time, so I'll just do it very quickly, is the impact upon special education. I work with autistic children and have been very successful using different techniques of video modeling. And New York City has also introduced a Second Life island specifically for the kids in my school, among other schools. And in relationship, the social networking is something that my kids are somewhat familiar with. The problem in getting them educated and using the technology for self-improvement really hinges upon the ability of the teacher not only to understand that technology, but to understand how to bring the child along. It's a very, very controlled environment. So many of the things that other people are interested in will be produced by kids, will be produced by teachers working with children. But in our case, we need to find out more about what technology is out there that is specifically adapted to the needs of the special education community to promote their social engagement and their personal skills. I hope that makes sense.
It does. Really good comment.
Rob, do you want to try yet again? It looks like you went and did the audio setup, so feel free to turn your mic on and try asking a question again. And maybe it didn't work for you. Okay, I'm going to go to Brubaker. You have the mic. Go ahead and click on the mic button in the audio box.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I hear you.
A big changer for me as a teacher was getting an iPod Touch, and even as a master's student in the humanities, I find that I use it a lot for my own education through having a dictionary available all the time when I'm reading a text, or even composing rough drafts of documents on my Touch and then sending them to Google Documents and then continuing the paper in another place. And then with students, I find that a lot of them are hungry for technology but don't always know exactly how to use it to help their education. And so I started trying to do a website of the week where I would show them ways to use, web apps and stuff to help them out. And I created a delicious feed so that they could just, I always tell them, remember one website and you could have access to, to all the stuff that I've showed them all year. And we just do that once a week. And I found that they really enjoyed that. And the students who did seem to have some sort of clue how to use it often had older brothers and sisters who were college age. Those are the students who had heard about some of the websites that I mentioned in class.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges here is that we're all kind of learning this together. We're catching up to the technology, which is capable of so much and has grown in its power so quickly. So it's hard to feel like we can master it, both as teachers and as students. But I think in the next few years we'll see just enormous growth in the incorporation of this stuff into the classroom, just because it has so much educational potential. We'll get better and better at it.
So Rachel, I don't know if you're aware of the Flat Classrooms project, but I'll send you an email later giving you some contact information there. I think you're going to find that there's some really interesting stories there. My guess is that other people have interesting stories to tell you as well. The chat log I will send to you, so don't worry that if you've missed something in the chat log, I'll make sure that you get that. Is there another way for people to communicate with you if they have ideas for you with regard to education in Digital Nation?
Absolutely. Well, if there should be a comments feature up on the site, first of all, which you should be able to access now. And we read those every day. They come right to us. That's probably the most direct way to get in touch with us. If you don't want your comment to be published, then I think you could probably email us at ARC. What's our general ARC? yourdigitalnation@gmail.com. So, we encourage you to comment because we really think it's important that people are able to see how other people are reacting to the site and create a community on the site. But if for any reason you want to keep that private, just email us at yourdigitalnation@gmail.com.
And it looks like Sandy's put in the Twitter account, dig_NAT. I'm assuming that you also see the replies to that account. So, Rachel, what's your timing like?
Yes.
We're about 2 minutes away from the hour. Do we need to wrap up?
In the next few minutes, I would say we've got. What time is our next event happening? 12. Okay, so we've got about 10 minutes.
Okay, so let's go ahead, Aaron. I've given you the mic if you'd like to ask your question. Why don't we take 2 or 3 more questions? We don't want to put Rachel too close to her timing, but take a couple more questions and then we'll finish up. And Aaron, to ask your question, go ahead and click on the mic button in the audio box.
Okay, can you hear me? All right, great.
Yes.
I can hear you.
Rachel, as a longtime teacher, and now I'm an educational specialist, so I kind of fight the battle at the upper level with curriculum people who are still wary, rightfully so, in many cases of technology and how to integrate it in. I spend a lot of time dealing with that. I guess my question is, with these types of projects, reaching out and the kids' voices being heard, how do you see leveraging these collective voices to really try to make an impact on where education is going? Because I really do think that the children's voices and parents' voices and teachers' voices really don't get heard quite as much as they need to. And I'm just wondering your ideas about leveraging all this information and making sure that the voices get heard.
Well, to a certain extent, I think that our audience for the broadcast of Frontline and on the website tend to be people who do have impact. There are a lot of policymakers and educators and principals and other people who have access to the levers of power, who watch the program and come to the website. So I hope that we're providing a kind of high profile forum for a lot of these issues to be raised. And then we have our own outreach department and promotion department and education. We're creating a whole kind of learning initiative around this project, which will be sent into schools. So I think there are going to be numerous ways in which over time we'll be able to kind of leverage the content of this project. Sandy St. Louis, I believe, is still present, and she can also add to this because she knows a bit more about the whole learning initiative that we're doing. And the Sandy, are you here?
So Sandy, I'd be glad to give you the mic if you want to raise your hand.
We're going to have a teacher's...
Go ahead.
Is Sandy here?
Sandy, I've given you mic capability. While we're waiting for Sandy, I'm going to put the show.
She's here.
I'm going to put the show evaluation into the web tour while Sandy's talking.
Hi, this is Sandy. Rachel, could you just comment a little bit about what you'd like me to address again? I'm sorry.
I was going to ask you to talk about the program that we're going to be bringing into schools. The sort of, isn't there a handbook that we're going to be giving to educators at the end of this project?
And Sandy, I turned your mic off because of echo, but you'll have to turn it back on now to respond.
Hi, sorry about that. Over the summer, we're going to be developing several online workshops and tutorials for parents and teachers with Renee Hobbs at Temple University Media Lab. And these tutorials are going to integrate some of the content that you see on the Digital Nation website with some curriculum and professional development seminars for teachers, and also tips for parents on how to navigate the web and the tools their kids use in this digital age.
Hopefully that helps answer your question.
Marlene, it looks like you have your hand raised. I'm going to give you the mic if you'd like to ask a question. If anybody would like to ask a question, why don't we say we'll take one or two more and then let Rachel go.
Hi, Rachel. Thank you so much. Can everyone hear me? Anyway,
yes.
My question was, great, thanks. My question was, have you interviewed people like the author of Born Digital, or what would Google do, and if that would be a part of your plan? And also, second part, have you worked at all with community college educators specifically, or people working with adults who are trying to transition and become users of digital technology? Thanks.
The answer to your first question is yes. We have not yet interviewed the author of Born Digital, which is John Palfrey, who works at the Berkman Center at Harvard. But there are a bunch of really, really good books out on this issue, and slowly we're sort of approaching some of the authors and interviewing some of them. I'm not sure that we're going to interview that particular person, but there will certainly be people who've written on the sort of overview perspective on this generation who will be interviewed for the site. We have not worked with community colleges. We're had a lot of balls in the air at this point, trying to just keep the website fresh and producing the documentary. So that kind of outreach is probably going to happen later on in the fall and into the winter, just because we only have so many hands on deck here.
And I'll give a little bit of a plug here for the monthly show that I do with Jenny Bradbury at PBS Teachers. We did interview John Palfrey, and that interview's up on Classroom 2.0 and PBS Teachers. And then I have upcoming interviews with John Seeley Brown and Clay Shirky and Doc Searles and a number of people who might fall into that category, Don Tapscott as well.
Don Tapscott is on our list as well, as is Clay.
Good. Both good people to have on your list. I'm going to give the microphone now to Andrew.
Yes. Hi, Rachel. Can you hear me?
Hi, Andrew. I can.
Okay, so what is your favorite web tool?
That's a great question. Gmail.
Gmail.
I know. I actually love Google. We've kind of Googleized our office. We use Google Docs, and we pretty much put everything that we do, all of our work product is up on Google Docs and it's shared. And being able to use Google Docs has transformed the way we work. And I have to say, it's probably at the top of my list.
I had to smile because there were several comments when you pulled up your desktop share, Rachel, because people immediately recognized the D-Go toolbar.
Ah, yes. I don't use that as much as I should. I'm really suffering at this point from what's the word I'm looking for? Overload. I'm oversaturated with media, with digital tools, with emails, and I'm struggling to kind of get out from under so that I can make a film, which I have to do. So I unfortunately have a lot of stuff on my toolbar that remains unused simply because I'm trying to simplify at this point and just do what I've absolutely got to do.
Well, we certainly want you to be able to do that. I think we should wrap up here. This is probably a good point to give you some thanks. So I'm going to initiate the clapping by clicking on the little clapping hand down in the bottom of the participant window.
I love it. I love
Rachel,
the clapping.
Thanks.
It's really great.
Thanks for taking the time to come on today. Really appreciate it. Love the overview of the site. I think a lot of people have gotten engaged today just by hearing you talk about it, and so appreciative of the work that you're doing. Our thanks to KnowledgeWorks and to Illuminate, both for supporting this series. Coming up tonight, a special session on the future of books and reading. Rachel, you would love this. I know you're not going to have time to be there, but we're going to talk specifically about the book becoming a platform for conversation and changes in technology related to reading. Tomorrow, it's librarians and social media. Then coming up, John C. Brown, David Thornburg, and many others. Thanks for coming today. Thanks for coming in an early hour. And Rachel, thanks so much. That was just terrific.
Thank you, and I do want to encourage any of you who are going to be at NECC to come to our booth. I think it's 1904 on Tuesday, June 30th, and Monday, June 29th, we'll be at NECC, and I'm going to be also on a panel at NECC on Tuesday afternoon called we're going to be gathering stories on Tuesday afternoon from 4:45 to 6 at that reception as well. So please join us and contribute.
I think, Rachel, you're going to be at a Birds of a Feather session that day. So if you're looking look for the Birds of a Feather session on digital storytelling, as I recall. And do remember, if you are at NECC, I'm going to bring our slide back up. Do consider coming to EduBloggerCon or NECC Unplugged. What a great event each year NECC is. So, Rachel, thank you. Thanks to Sandy St. Louis for setting this up and being so spectacular and organizing. And thanks, everybody, for coming today. We'll leave the chat open, but we'll let Rachel go.
Okay, Steve, before I go, I forgot to mention one thing. Sandy's going to kill me if I don't mention it. So can I do it?
Absolutely. You're in charge.
Okay. Okay, thank you. We are having a live forum on education in the digital age next Wednesday on our website at 11 a.m. And this is an opportunity for you guys to ask questions and talk to each other of some of the experts, top experts on this issue, a few of whom we have interviewed already on our site. So I really urge you to come and join us 11 a.m. next Wednesday online on our site, Education in the Digital Age.
Is that an audio
again, guys.
forum
I'm going to
or
sign
a
off.
chat
Sorry.
forum?
No, it's a chat forum. It's a chat forum.
Awesome.
Thank you, Steve, and thanks to everybody for being here. It's really great to have so much interest.
Thanks, Rachel, for all the good
I'll
work.
see you
Thanks,
soon.
everybody. Thanks, Sandy.
Bye-bye.
Well, we have a few minutes for a little post-session chat. At a certain point in time, we're going to need to kick everybody out in order for the recording to process. But I thought that was terrific, and boy, what a neat lady, and what good work she's doing. So Marlene, you're asking for the evaluation URL. I just put it in the chat. I think that's what you're looking for. Oh yeah, go ahead and click on that link and it should be okay for you. There was so much chat, I could not follow 80% of it. Caroline, feel free to, let's try, you don't have mic privileges, so I'm going to go ahead and give you the mic now. You want to try clicking on the mic button in the audio box? I'll be able to see when your mic comes on. It hasn't come on yet. But in the audio box, there's a button. Usually says has a picture of a microphone and Control F2 below it if you're on a PC. Did you run the Tools Audio Setup Wizard? Yeah, I did see Rachel's chat forum mentioned on their website. And there's a link to that, I believe, on the Digital Nation website. Oh, Caroline, there must be some problem. I'm sorry. Is it a question you can put in the chat? Brew Baker, did you want to take the mic?
Steve.
Yeah.
Did you, it was mentioned in the chat about maybe having somebody just moderating or just checking the chat for questions. Because it seemed like it was overload.
Yeah, and sometimes I've done that, and I wasn't sure how many people were going to come this morning. And normally I can pull questions out. And I actually didn't tell Rachel this, but I put them in a Google Doc. Which oftentimes I'll share with the guest so that they can see I can pull the questions out. But it got going pretty fast today, didn't it?
Yeah, but it was great. This is my first time using Illuminate, and it was really nice.
I think it's a wonderful setup. And I do think that this is a fascinating technology because it does allow for such a high level of participation in a way that, around topics in a way that I think we've traditionally felt really you could only do at a conference. So all of a sudden we have this capability now to talk about specific topics without having to fly great distances or pay the cost of organizing an event.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, good. Thank you. So Illuminate is a fee service. However, we've started a new program called LearnCentral.org. And if you go to LearnCentral.org, you can it will automatically sign you up for a free version of Illuminate, and then it allows you to do these kinds of larger public events for free as well. So Illuminate's very interested in having this technology available for educational purposes. Yeah, LearnCentral will continue to be free. That's the plan. There's no long-term plan to turn that into a fee service. The goal is to contribute to the overall potential for combining social networking and online teaching and learning. So very fun. Good feedback, Greg. And we know we're definitely still very much in beta. Hopefully it keeps getting better. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close this down. That way the recording can process. So what I will do is I will actually remove everybody from the session. Sure appreciate your being here today. Thanks so much for coming.